But this is a neat thing that they're trying to really get the information out to the community about what Heartland provides for students and families and all those things. And so they're putting together an hour-long tour where people from the community who may be able to help spread the word of Heartland, make sure that people know of those services, and also maybe are able to provide additional assistance, things like that to Heartland, would be engaged in that. They're looking to do this from March to May, and one of the things they've asked is for, the board members to maybe think of people who might be involved in that or would maybe be invited. Some of the people I was thinking of were HR managers for larger corporations who might have staff that would benefit from those needs and things like that. So I'd maybe think of some of those things. There was something else I was going to share from that, but I can't think of it right now, so I guess we're good.
Okay, thank you. Ann?
I attended a number of things in the past couple weeks. I went to the Poetry Out Loud state finals, which were at South High, and South High's Santiago Vasquez won third in the state. I was sorry he didn't win first, which I thought he deserved, but he didn't, so he did a great job. I was at Sunset doing songwriting workshops with fifth graders, and just as we finished, there was a tornado drill in our new storm shelter, and the students did an excellent job. I didn't get the actual minute count of how long it took them to get in there, but somewhere around 3 minutes or so to get the whole school in the shelter. I attended the 2019 Salina Choral Festival at the Stiefel, which included choirs from South and Central, as well as Southeast of Saline, El Saline, Sacred Heart, and Kansas Wesleyan, and everybody sounded wonderful. I attended the Central National Honor Society new member induction, and I took popcorn to the Lakewood staff at their last staff meeting before spring break. Thank you. That's all.
Gabe?
It had been a while since we had a CKCIE Board of Control meeting because of holidays and snow days and superintendent search, so we had a very full agenda. We discussed, they are trying out reducing some para positions from 35 hours to 25 hours. That doesn't make them benefits eligible, so save some costs there. And they found some benefits with that in hiring people that prefer that schedule. Maybe a spouse already has benefits, so there's been some cost savings there for all those member districts, and just keeping an eye on that, on how it affects turnover and hiring. They're not changing any current para positions to those 28-hour positions, but just new hires are being added at that level. So several new staff members may need to be added for next year because of increased numbers of students needing special education accommodations. Already hired 2 SLPs, which was very exciting. And some discussion about the Hayes District. They're looking at some grant options for paying tuition of college juniors and seniors, similar to the SEF program and Grow Your Own that we do here. So seeing how those fit in with the co-ops initiatives. Several equipment purchases were discussed. 5 pieces of orthopedic equipment are at the end of their, probably it's extended past the end of their usable life. About $21,000 in purchases. Part of that could be reimbursed by Medicaid. And then also looking at switching some computers over for a district-wide switch to Chromebooks to reduce some costs. And then last spring, the Board of Control voted to increase district's assessments by 3%, and then to revisit it here again in the spring. We revisited that, and they decided to do another additional 1.6% assessment of all districts, making the additional assessment for Saline $63,456 for a total assessment this year for Saline of $4,152,701. So that puts the CKCIE fiscal year in balance around 240,000. The goal and the continued discussion has been that there would be at least 1 month of payroll in that account. There's a ways to go there, but that would be kind of fiscally responsible in that regard. So that's about $1.9 million, just so you have a frame of reference. But I think Carol's going to discuss the legislative post-audit we received at that meeting. So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Gabe. Emma?
Attended the National Honor Society of Secondary Schools at Central High. And of course, these are students that demonstrate high standards for scholarship, leadership, character, and service, and it was very well attended. Also attended the Salina Adult Education graduation, and one of the speakers there said the most important thing for the students or for employees or for anybody is to what? Just show up. And so anyway, those two words have really stuck with me. So anyway, for success in life, you just mainly, really just show up. And so that's real important. But anyway, the other thing is that attended also the Salina Adult Education Board meeting. And at this board meeting, they discussed the honorary award that was given to the Saline County Community Corrections and Drug Court teams because of their service that they've given to the students and how they honor young people or people who want to increase their education and have literacy and be employed in Salina and the surrounding areas. And so under the Salina Partners for Success report card, there were a total of, this was for January, they had 66 students, and they have employed 48, and they have employed in 12 businesses here in Salina have employed these individuals. So it's really successful and very, very nice. And Partners for Success has really been very helpful for these students. Sometimes one of the things that they had difficulty with was that they just needed eyeglasses because they couldn't see or read because they just needed classes. And so they help with that. So it was really a good educational program, and they do a lot of good work.
Yes, I do. Carol?
Yeah, I'll add to the Adult Ed Advisory Board meeting that Emma was talking about. Enrollment there is up by 35 students this year, which Kelly is very pleased at. Most of the classes, of course, are being taught at the main building, but Catholic Charities is also handling some of the ESL classes. Emma mentioned disabled students in a sense by talking about the necessity of glasses. There are a couple of significantly disabled students that Salina Adult Ed is helping out right now, but CIE has also cooperated with them by providing a brailler, which can translate books and so on into something that a totally blind student can read, and they're really very happy about that. So thanks for that cooperation with CKCIE. Excuse me, got a bit of a cold coming. Kelly's looking forward to having the diploma completion program under her roof next fall, thinking that there'll be many more opportunities for students to be counseled into jobs in the future. So she's looking forward to that. And she also mentioned a program called AOK, which is in conjunction with the VOTEC school. Eligible students can get their college tuition paid after they've successfully completed 12 hours. And they can complete both a GED and a technical program. Currently, it's the medical pathway that they're working with, but they hope to increase that at some point. I think the state is also working on a situation where you won't even have to have a GED or get a GED if you pass a state-initiated test of some kind. And then you can get both of those situations corrected in your life. So that was adult ed. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the performance audit report that was in conjunction with the Central Kansas Cooperative in Education. And I think you all received copies of that. It's a lengthy report, but there were 3 major questions that the Legislative Post-Audit Committee considered. what does it cost school districts to provide special education? Has special ed funding been calculated and distributed in accordance with state law in recent years? And how does Kansas compare with similar states in funding special ed? And so they sampled 9 representative groups, of which our co-op was one. Students were counted in 14 categories. The largest is learning disabled. There are over 25,000, almost 26,000 learning disabled students in Kansas. Speech language, 14,000. Developmental delay, 13,600. And gifted students, 11,700. Total of almost 87,000 students in 2017-18. That number, by the way, continues to grow up every year. The study attempted to distinguish between cost and expenditures, which I found an interesting distinction. They identified cost as what should be spent, what is really needed, and expenditures as what was actually spent. And what is fascinating about this is that in the year 2017-18, Kansas special ed organizations spent nearly $900 million to provide student services. However, the study found that the cost, what should have been spent, was $940 million to $1.2 billion. Well, gasp. Big difference. So some significant findings were as follows. The study said more teachers and fewer paraprofessionals are needed to provide better service. That would be part of that increased cost. Larger organizations, such as the Central Kansas Cooperative in Education, operate with less expense than do independent districts and small interlocals. Not totally surprising, since the resources are pooled. But one of the great things out of that was that our cooperative operated in 2018 at the lowest cost per pupil, along with West Central and Cowley County. We were in both the highest and lowest estimates, one of the lowest 3. So that speaks extremely well to what's being done with our group. In total, costs exceed expenditures by $41,000 to $319 million, and in other words, a significant increase in funding is needed. And they also found that although the Department of Education has distributed funds appropriately, the legislature has failed to provide the funds that are required by state law. No surprise there either. But it's there, it's in a report. Now what does the legislature do with it? So, good meetings that we had, right?
Yes, very good.
I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
I was really impressed with all of them, so. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank all of you for attending all of these things and doing all of these things. It really helps the board, I think, as a whole with our own education in addition, and I appreciate the time that you give. I also attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting. They meet at 7 a.m., and that's a little jaunt from South Salina up there, but I think out of all the things at this last meeting, what is always outstanding and interesting is the Salina Airport Authority, and I hope that you, Dr. Hardy, will add on to that, but they are going great guns out there and doing a phenomenal job with transportation in and out of Salina and making a difference for our Salina people and the surrounding area as well. I attended Partners for Success graduation of 4 lovely ladies, and it's just a 6-week course, and it sounds like so much is put into that, but mostly what I see happening is the people changing when they go through that and building confidence in themselves and believing that they can do it and that they believe they have support. It's actually just a small miracle with all of them I think, moving in a positive direction and getting help to do that. I also delivered cookies, and that's fun. They don't know for sure why you're there when they walk in the room, and they think, oh gosh, are we in trouble now? And you announce that you have cookies, and even on a Friday morning, it's pretty good. So, Dr. Hardy, I will turn this over to you for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. I also attended that Chamber of Commerce meeting. It's always entertaining to have Tim Rogers speak. And actually, I've invited him to attend our district leadership team meeting. We're going to reschedule. I think it'll be in April or May, so he can give that same presentation.
Great.
Part of the end in mind is that we want to make sure our leadership team knows what's happening in Salina, because we're an integral part of the economy. And so to see all the employment and all the wonderful things going out there is pretty impressive. It is just, like I said, every time Tim speaks, you're just inspired that there's so many good things happening. This last Friday and over the weekend, I was in contact with our legislators, and politics is definitely happening in Topeka. They keep saying, be patient. It's going to be fine. Be patient. So we'll see how that plays out. There are a couple bills I'll just bring to your attention. Senate Bill 128, this is important for our building principals especially. The legislature, in their wisdom, and it's a good idea, added, more drills. We have our tornado drills and fire drills and safety drills. And in their enthusiasm, there were so many drills that I think about every 18 days or something like that, we had a drill of some type. So they're going to change that to 9 drills, and the building principals will have a certain amount of say which ones fits their particular setting. So that's encouraging that they actually listen. The other thing I would share with you is that you might recall when the legislature changed Board of Education elections to November, they weren't listening during that one. I think they were trying to politicize it, actually. But one thing that happened was, our year starts July 1st, and that's when boards reorganize. Well, the issue is, what if you have someone who's elected to a president or vice president position, and then November rolls around and they don't win, and they're not returned? Now you have to find a way to have a new president or vice president. And so the Senate Bill 7 is going to allow boards of education to determine when they would like to reorganize. I shouldn't say that. You'll still reorganize July 1st, but when you would like to have the elections of your president and vice president. It can be in January, like when our legislators come into office, or it can still be in July. I think they're going to give the Board of Education the option to do that as they would like. So now they are listening, because I think it was the unintended consequences of the earlier decision. We did host a Kansas Teacher of the Year nominees for our area. And of course, we're real proud of JC and Travis. They're great representatives of our district. So it gave us a chance to kind of brag and show off what we have to do. And of course, they went to Meadowlark Ridge, because that's where JC's from. And Travis took them the opportunity now. And it's just really interesting. He was explaining what Op Now, that's what he likes to call it, is like. And just to see the amazement in those folks, to see that we have that opportunity for those students, and how amazing it is, how those students go through that change of the time that they're there. And the way I understand it, the tour that we had, and Mike was talking about it today, the tour we had was a student who was, he's a senior, isn't he? And when he came in as a freshman, I think he was a bit of a mess. And as a senior, he's a little more affirmed in himself, and he gave a tour to the administrators of Opportunity Now. So I hope he did the same when Travis took the Kansas Teacher of the Year. But it was nice to show what we have, and of course, we have a lot to be proud of. And my highlight of highlights, I just have to say this. I sat in on the Rearwind Scholarship Committee, and if you just, the folks that are, some of the people on the committee are not school people, they're community people, and they are just an amazement of the good things that are happening with our students. It's a real compliment to the programs that we have, our pathways. Each of these students, so this is a scholarship for students. They don't want the straight A student. They want the student that's kind of the B student, who also probably worked a lot through high school. Some of these students had 2 or 3 jobs. A lot of them had to pay for their own clothing, school bills, whatever it might be, and still they maintained good grades. They stayed out of trouble. They took care of business. They were even involved in activities. And they went through these pathways, and like the medical pathway or whatever it might be, and just their stories about what they've overcome and what they've done. It was just so inspiring. You sit there, and the committee, my job was to bring them in and then take them out. And I would bring somebody in, and we'd have this great interview, and I would have the student tell their story about their pathway, that they got to see some things that we as adults have never seen. And so these students are so affirmed in what they want to do. I don't think you can shake them from it. They know this is what they want to do. And so, like I said, that's a compliment to what we do. So I would take them out, and then I would come back in, and they would all look at me and go, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because they were so inspired by the students. Because then there was another student who was just as inspiring. And so by the end, we had all these awesome students. But the great thing about that scholarship is, the Rearwin Scholarship is, all the students received something. But it was very inspiring, and those folks, you know, that's what they said. Their comment was, anybody who is doubting what we're doing in public education and is doubting the students that we have today, they just don't know these kids. So that was really inspiring. So it's kind of nice to go into spring break, you know, thinking about those type of things. So, Madam President, that's my report.
Okay, thank you. I think we do need an executive session this evening, and it's for negotiations, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How many
Aaron-
minutes?
Aaron, how long would you like?
Aaron? 10 minutes? And let's give us 25 till to start in our meeting. So that'd be a good round number. Gary?
Madam President, I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 5:35 for 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 5:45 in the board conference room.
Second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. We will adjourn here in about 7 minutes, or right now we'll adjourn and reconvene in,
Not adjourned,
or,
Yeah.
okay, we're still open. All right.
We're just
And we meet in the other room right next here. If you'd like to stay until we come out, that's perfectly fine with you. And thank you so much for coming this evening.
Oh, I'm going to. I wish it wasn't rainy, though.